Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is our TNA show for the week. Let's jump right into it. We're going to go right to the so-so portions. They weren't bad, they weren't good, they were just there. First thing we're going to start with is the opening segment with Kurt Angle coming out and laying the groundwork for the show. Brings out Earl Hebner, reinstates him. Brings out Samoa Joe. There's a little bit of a standoff. And to be honest, the interaction between Joe and Angle is what took this segment from being a bad segment, in my opinion, and moved it up just a notch to so-so. It's been well documented if you watch my show or have any of our shows in the past, how much I dislike this opening segment with the authority figure coming out and setting up the show. It's an unneeded necessity. If you did it every once in a while, it'd be okay. If you do it every week, it becomes overkill. It's lazy booking. It's been done to death, whether it be Dixie Carter, MVP, Jeff Jarrett, Kurt Angle, or whoever else has done it in TNA, or whoever else does it in WWE. The whole portion of that, just to me, it's become passe and an overused thing. I'd rather take that 15-20 minutes and focus on a match or an angle or something other than the authority figure setting the boundaries. After that, we had a three-way tag match, which going into, I thought was going to be better than it was. We had Jesse from the Bromance teaming with DJ ZZ Maayan against the Freak and Nux from the Menagerie against the Wolves. Now, the Wolves and Bromance feud has been actually pretty solid. Good in-ring work between the two. I hate to pin it on this, but it kind of seems like adding the Freak and Nux in there kind of threw off the chemistry. Now, that's not to say that the Freak and Nux couldn't have a good match with Jesse and DJ Z on their own, or a good match with the Wolves on their own. I just think, for whatever reason, the three-way pairing was thrown off, and the match came off very lackluster. The Wolves do pick up the win to retain the belts. Just my opinion. I mean, I'm not knocking any of the teams, just sometimes you get styles that don't match up well. And the Wolves and Bromance, their styles match up well. Wolves and Nux and Freak might match up well, or Bromance and Nux and Freak might match up well. But putting them into a three-way match where it's all about high spots and fast action may not be the best bet for them. Now, coming off of that, we're going to go into our bad portion of the week. Really, there was only one thing I disliked, and I didn't totally dislike it. I just think part of it was very unlikely. We had Brittany come out, call out Madison Rayne, kind of apologize for her, and then attack her and turn heel on her. The thing that put this into the bad segment for me was Brittany's acting. Now, in the ring, she's very good. I don't know how much experience she has, but she's a very solid in-ring worker and a great addition to a good knockouts division that TNA has. As an actor, as someone to carry a talking segment, not so much. I was tremendously bored through the whole thing. It really seemed like a person going up there and trying to remember their lines instead of someone that knew what they were going to say and had confidence in it. So to me, that's what threw it down into the bad portion. But coming off of that, we're going to go into our question of the week, which we have some great answers right here from our friends. Question of the week is, how do you feel about active wrestlers going into the Hall of Fame? Should it be guys that are retired? Should they allow active guys in this? And as I've stated on last week's show, to this point, TNA has put in all active wrestlers. So we're going to go to some of our friends. First, we have Zombies 40. All of TNA's best wrestlers from the start are still mostly wrestling today, whether in TNA or other promotions. So I think it's okay to have wrestlers who made an impact in TNA who are still wrestling be in the Hall of Fame. Fair equation. There's a very short list of guys that have retired. I want to say Ken Shamrock, Jerry Lynn, Sonny Siaki might be a good person if you guys remember the early TNA or watch the early TNA. But these are guys that have retired and moved on. But fair enough, not a big pool to draw from. Next is from our friend Silver84. TNA hasn't been around that long, so I'm fine with them putting in wrestlers in their Hall of Fame who are still active in TNA. Kind of the same argument, just worded a little bit differently. And last but not least, our friend from our friend at AUP116 from Twitter. I'm fine with it, but I like it to be bumped up to two to three members, and one of those members being a retired requirement. Kind of a compromise, meeting in the middle. You got a little bit of this, and here's my reason. I personally would like it to see it be all retired people. Just my personal opinion. Now, whether they're retired or they're retired from TNA and working indies, which we've seen with some of the people that WWE's put in their Hall of Fame are still working the indies, is a different story. Like I mentioned, a couple guys that would be well deserving. A guy like Ken Shamrock, their first world champion. Jerry Lynn, very big guy in TNA history. Guy like Sonny Siaki, who was big early on in TNA and probably should have had a way better career than he did, other than he had some health issues that took him away from it. But you got others out there that have come through TNA and made a big impact and have since basically retired that could have been put into this. A guy like Jim Cornette. Why not? I mean, he's probably not going into the WWE Hall of Fame anytime soon, and he's a guy deserving of Hall of Fame. So to me, I kind of don't like it, and here's what I'm going to mention, and this is going to be the extreme example, so don't flame me on this, but I'm giving you an example that quite honestly literally could happen. Let's say that WWE adopted the same theory that TNA does. We'll go ahead and we'll put in guys that are still active wrestlers but towards the end of their career. They say, okay, we'll do that. We know they might have 1 or 2 years left. In 2005, let's say their Hall of Fame class consists of Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit. Now, both of them towards the end of their career. I know Eddie Guerrero. I don't know for sure if Eddie Guerrero was winding down, but I know there have been a lot of stories saying that Chris Benoit was telling people he had a year, maybe 2, before he decided he was going to retire and move on. So I digress. You put him in the 2005 Hall of Fame or 2004, whatever case it may be, for Eddie to still be alive. Eddie dies rather soon after that. Not a big deal. Doesn't scar the Hall of Fame too much. Deserving of the category. Now, up until the last 3 days of Chris Benoit's life, he was very deserving to be a WWE Hall of Famer. Or in that case, any wrestling's Hall of Fame. The stuff he achieved in the professional wrestling world is on par, if not better, than 80 to 90% of the people in the WWE Hall of Fame. And I know this is a TNA show and it's a different thing and a different entity. Here's what I'm getting at. If you would have put in Chris Benoit while he was still alive, and the Chris Benoit incident happened, then you're stuck there with egg on your face. You're stuck there looking like, this guy's in our Hall of Fame. Whereas now, the WWE could totally shut him out of the Hall of Fame. Now, that's not saying if you put in somebody, a wrestler that retired 5 years ago, that he doesn't snap and kill people. It may happen. It's a definite possibility. I mean, people in all walks of life end up being murderers. However, somebody retired and not currently working with your company is less of an impact on what you've done with what they've done with your company, if you follow what I'm saying. So to me, I would leave it to guys that are retired. I mean, you got guys like Wildcat Chris Harris they could put in, guys I mentioned before, Matt Bentley, aka Michael Shade, aka the 3 or 5 different things. Guys that helped out in the past with them, Chris Candido. You know, there's some guys that you could use. Sinister Minister would be a good one. He's not currently wrestling anywhere or managing anywhere that I'm aware of. Where else I'd like it because I always enjoyed his work. The Wall. You know, there's a good amount of guys that could be brought in and used for their Hall of Fame, especially since they're only doing one person a year. And I understand what they've done. They've used 3 of the biggest stars that they've had in their company, and that's not a knock on them. Kurt Angle's a huge star, Sting's a huge star, Team 3D are huge stars. I get it. It makes sense. But to me, I'd rather see it be retired people. And although extreme, that's my reason. But I have others. To me, Hall of Fame, and being a legitimate sports fan as well, most sports don't put in their people that retire till 3 to 5 years after they're retired. So that's part of what I'm trying, my mindset is. But anyway, I digress. We'll go on to the question of the week for next week. Now, we see the rehiring of Earl Hebner. With that, it got me thinking in my head. Who is the greatest referee of all time? Let me know your opinion. Let me know what you think. Hit us up on our Facebook. Hit us up on Twitter. Put it down where? Down in the comments. And I'll discuss that with you guys next week on my opinion and read your opinions as well. Now, coming off of that, we're going to go into our good portion of the night, the stuff I actually like. I enjoyed the street fight with Bobby Roode and Kenny King. I thought the setup was good. I thought the match itself was good. I thought it reintroduced us to Bobby Roode as a legitimate threat to Bobby Lashley's title. I think only good things are going to happen coming out of this. Bobby Roode being back in the main event scene. The only thing I didn't like is Roode's music now all of a sudden has words with it. Thought his music was fine as it was, leave it alone. But a good match, a good way to start the show. Or a good way to move this feud forward. Next up we had EC3 versus Bully Ray in a tables match. Bully gets control. Rockstar Spud interferes, which brings out Rhino. Looks like he's going to attack Spud to even up the odds. Turns on Bully Ray. They put Bully through a table. Again, furthering the feud with the faction of EC3, Spud, now Rhino, and Dixie Carter. So, we're going to see more of that going forward in the next few weeks and months, probably. But a good match altogether. I really enjoy the EC3 character, and the cheating to help him win, I think, adds to it. Next up, we had the segments with Samuel Shaw and Gunner, leading up to him, apologizing to Mr. Anderson, and Gunner pretty much sticking up for him to Anderson, and saying, trust me, and then going to Chrissy Hemme, which he says to her he apologizes. She says she doesn't know if she could forgive him yet. He walks away. I think there's going to be good coming from this. I enjoy the Samuel Shaw character. I like Gunner and how he's evolved over the year. I like Mr. Anderson. So I think somewhere in there's going to be a good feud that ends up coming out of this. And I think it's the Samuel Shaw character is so refreshing because it's so different than anything else that I've ever seen. Now, next up, we had the Knockouts title match, Angelina Love versus Gail Kim. Angelina and Velvet Sky try to get referee Stifler to be on their side. He gets stopped by Kurt Angle. He sends out Brian Hebner to ref the match, which leaves us in a fair-fought match with Gail Kim picking up the win and picking up yet another Knockouts title for her impressive career. Gail Kim, probably one of the great women's wrestlers of all time at this point. The more she does is just going to add to her legendary status going forward. And last but not least, Eric Young gets his rematch for the world title versus Bobby Lashley. A decent match. Eric Young puts on some great offense. I'm on the fence with the outcome with Lashley winning cleanly because I wanted them to keep Eric Young up in a higher echelon of wrestlers. But I understand why. I think his world title run was more of a lifetime achievement award than we think you're a guy we can bank on for the next couple of years award. So Lashley winning makes sense to me. I just, in my personal opinion, think I like Eric Young as a wrestler. So I think I would like to have seen him stay in the main event picture. But coming off of that, we're going to go right into our top 10. I'm sorry. We're going to go into our ratings for the week. Now, if you've seen the show in the past, we have a 1 to 5 scale. 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. 1's a Dixie Carter, 2's a Rockstar Spud, 3 is a Gunner, 4 is a James Storm, 5 is a Bobby Roode. I give the show a solid 4, a James Storm. Not too much I outright dislike. The Brittany acting is the one that sticks out most to me. Other than that, everything was either good to... Most of the matches were good to great. The 3-way tag match was a little bit disappointing. And the beginning of the show, I'm starting to take it as something that I'm just going to have to live with. At some point, you just go, okay, this is what they're going to do. If I'm going to watch wrestling, I'm going to watch that. But all in all, a solid show. TNA's had a pretty good run over the last month or so of solid shows back-to-back, which was part of what a lot of the complaints with TNA was, and a lot of my personal complaints were that they didn't have a consistent product. One week it would be great, the next week it would suck. And then it would suck for a couple weeks, and then it'd be great for a week or two, and then it would suck again, and then it would be great. And it was just so random, like, it would seem for every good show they had a horrible show. And there was really no middle ground. Now we're starting to see where the show qualities are stepping up to either very good or a good quality. And like I said, I think this show's a 4 out of 5. I think it's a James Storm. A very good show in my opinion. I'd like to see them continue this run and grow and build on it. I think the better TNA shows are produced, the longer they're going to stick around. The longer they stick around, the better chance they have to compete with the giant WWE. Even if they don't directly compete with them, as long as they put on compelling shows, it gives us, the wrestling fans, options of what we want to watch, which is always great. The more options you have, the better. You can go to Ring of Honor, you can watch TNA, you can watch WWE, you can go to the Indies, watch some of the great Indies out there like Championship Hollywood from Florida, PWX out of North Carolina, Chikara, CZW if you're into the hardcore wrestling. There's all kinds of great stuff out there, and the more options they are, the better it is for us as a fan. It's just like if you live in a town that has one restaurant, you're stuck with eating what that restaurant gives you when you go out to eat, as opposed to if I have just an Olive Garden in my town and I want to go out to eat for dinner, that's where I gotta go. Now, if I have an Olive Garden, a Chili's, a Red Lobster, an Outback Steakhouse, multiple options, then I can decide, do I want steak, do I want fish, do I want chicken, do I want to eat here, do I like the service there? Gives you different options, much like professional wrestling. The more businesses that succeed, the more options as fans we have, and I hope TNA continues to succeed. But basically, that's all I have to say about that. My name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of Heel Heat.